everyone, welcome back to Learner's World. Today's video is going to be about homesteading. I'll have a fill-in-the-blank note sheet and a Quizlet linked in the description box below. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with what is homesteading. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines homesteading as the act or practice of living frugally or self-sufficiently, especially by growing and preserving food. Homesteading is a lifestyle focused on values such as health, freedom, and self-reliance. Today, many live this lifestyle by raising chickens, growing gardens, sometimes living off the grid, and raising other farm animals like cows and goats. So we're going to quickly talk about some gardening aspects of homesteading. First up is effective garden design. So what is garden design? Garden design is the process and art of creating and designing plans for the garden layout and planting the garden. Effective garden design starts with the planning. This is where you're going to assess the amount of sun the garden location gets, the climate, and the soil type. The design of the garden should also incorporate the needs of your family and pets, such as having a play area for the kids or a patio. The garden design should also take into consideration the architecture of the house, so you can mesh the style of the garden to the style of the house. What does gardening look like for homesteaders? Homesteaders typically start seeds, build healthy soil with compost, use space-saving techniques such as raised bed garden or vertical gardening, and incorporate edible and pollinator-friendly plants. Composting. What is compost? Compost is a mixture of ingredients that get used as plant fertilizer and to improve the physical, chemical, and biological properties of the soil. What goes in the compost? It can be anything from manure to dead leaves to vegetable matter. Saving seeds. This can be done accidentally when ripe fruit drops to the ground and sprouts in the garden the following year. Homesteaders typically intentionally save seeds by physically removing the seeds as they use the produce. So when they're cutting up produce like tomatoes and apples, they'll take the seeds out and put them aside for the next growing season. By saving seeds, it helps to save money on plants in the long run. Saving seeds can also help the varieties of the things you plant to better adapt to the climate in which you live. Growing seedlings. When growing plants from seeds, several types of seeds can be started in a greenhouse, under a grow light, or in a windowsill. The use of a seed starting mix, or one labeled as soilless mix, is what you're going to use to typically plant a seedling in. This plant mix typically contains material like peat moss and perlite. When using soilless mix, you may want to wet the material before you add it to a seedling tray. Once you have the mix in the trays, follow the instructions on the seed packet for things like how deep to plant the seed. Okay, what about a possible injury on a homestead? So homesteaders should have basic first aid under their belts. They should have the following first aid skills: CPR training for infants, children, and adults, AED operation, bleeding control, basic wound care, choking response, stop the bleed training, which stop the bleed training is used until professional help arrives. You're going to have the skills of tourniquet application, wound packing, direct pressure techniques, and recognizing types of bleeding with first aid training. Next, you have wilderness first aid, which is abbreviated to WFA. It is designed for emergencies where 911 isn't an option. It includes treating fractures and sprains, building splints and improvised stretchers, managing hypothermia, heat illness and dehydration, and patient assessment in remote settings. Next is Wilderness First Responder, which is abbreviated to WFR. It's an advanced version of Wilderness First Aid. It includes extended care for multi-day emergencies, advanced trauma management, evacuation planning, and leadership and decision-making under pressure. They also may want to have tactical emergency casualty care, which is abbreviated to TECC. It teaches how to respond to violent emergencies. It includes care under fire, rapid trauma assessment, tourniquets, wound packing, and airway management. And they also may want to have emergency medical responder training. Now, what to do about water on a homestead? Usually they're going to collect rainwater. So why would they collect rainwater? The collected rainwater can be used to help keep gardens alive during dry spells. It can also be used to clean tools, rinse feed trays, and refill troughs. The use of rainwater also allows for the cost of the water bill to be reduced since you wouldn't constantly have water running. Now we're going to talk about some food-related things for homesteading. So first up is food preservation. Common methods to preserve food that homesteaders use include canning, dehydration, freeze-drying, fermentation, root cellaring, and freezing. So canning. Canning is when you put food into a jar, place the lid on the jar and secure it in place, and process the jar of food with heat to sterilize or pasteurize everything. Canning is a practice that dates back to Napoleon's time, when he realized how difficult it was to travel with ferments or root-cellared food when trying to overtake a country. In the early 1800s, an early version of modern-day canning was created. Equipment needed for canning includes a heavy-bottom stock pot with lid and jar rack, glass canning jars with lids and rings, pressure canner, labels and markers, jar lifter, a magnetic lid lifter, funnel, colander, headspace ruler or a bubble popper, kitchen tools, vinegar, and a dish rag. Typical foods that get canned include lean proteins, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. Baking bread. Baking their own bread allows homesteaders to save a little more money. It also helps them to know what's in the bread. Store-bought bread often contains preservatives and other stuff to help with the shelf life, while baking the bread at home gives homesteaders control over the ingredients that are being used in the bread. Homemade bread also tends to be more nutritious. Animals related to homesteading. Chicken keeping. The chickens provide homesteaders with fresh eggs and pest control. Homesteaders can also use chicken manure for soil enrichment. There are several chicken breeds that are specifically raised for meat, including Cornish cross, which also get called Cornish rock, Freedom Rangers, and Sasso chickens. Next is goat keeping. Just like chickens, there are certain breeds of goats that are just raised for meat. Common goat breeds raised for meat include Boer goats, Spanish goats, Savannah goat, Myotonic goat, and a Kiko goat. You also have goats that are raised for their milk production. Common milk goat breeds include Alpine goats, Nubian goats, Nigerian dwarf goats, and La Manchas goats. On top of using goats for meat and milk, they can also be used to help with lawn maintenance by letting them eat weeds. The only issue with the maintenance of weeds sometimes is keeping the goats in the area you want them in at the moment to eat down the weeds. Beekeeping. When keeping bees, you want to keep their hive in an area with good drainage and that is sheltered from the wind. You also want the hive location to have plenty of sunlight to warm the hive. Beekeeping will provide a homesteader with honey, beeswax, pollination for their garden, and depending on the county that the homesteader is living in, beekeeping may also qualify for agricultural valuation, which may reduce property taxes. Cow keeping. Similarly to goats, you can keep cows for milk or meat. Homesteaders can also use cow manure to fertilize their gardens. The trick with cow manure is to let it dry completely before adding it to the garden. Cattle will also graze on the grass to shorten the length of the grass. Some hobbies that are needed for homesteading. Sewing. Sewing allows for new clothing items to be added to one's closet. It also helps for one's clothing items that are frequently worn to be patched up. It also allows for fabric and old clothes to be recycled into other household items, such as dish towels or curtains. Crocheting and knitting. For children who are raised on a homestead, this is an activity that can help develop fine motor skills. Similarly to sewing, you can knit and crochet clothing items and household items like a dish rag. Keep in mind that crochet is done with one hook and knitting is done with 2 needles. Harder work aspects of homesteading. Firewood preparation. Firewood preparation includes cutting the wood to a good size, splitting them for efficient drying, and stacking them off the ground with their sides exposed to air to season for 6 to 12 months or until the moisture content is below 20%. Carpentry. On a homestead, carpentry tasks include using wood to build, maintain, and repair structures and objects around the homestead. And where you can go to learn more about homesteading on YouTube, some good channels to start with are More Than Farmers, Hidden Heights, Living Traditions, Homesteading, and Good Simple Living. And if you're more into reading, one website to check out is the Homesteading Family website. And there are also several books written on the topic of homesteading. That's all I have for today's video. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button. And if there's a topic you want to learn more about in a future video, leave it in the comment section below. I hope y'all have a great day. Bye!